It was about like 9:30. I guess that's when the call started. Then I guess I didn't answer the phone until the last time she called, which was, I think it was like 9:51 or something to that. It was towards almost close to 10 o'clock by that time. And then that's when I get the phone call from her, and I actually had a chance.
The idea that human happiness is connected to the immense accumulation of commodity. I think that idea is what is driving development in what we used to call the developed world, is driving development in China, is driving development in India. I think it will increasingly drive development in
to speak with her. And I'm waking up out of a sleep, and she just saying, "Babe, listen." And I'm like, "I'm listening." And she said, "My plane has been hijacked." And I said, "Stop playing," because I'm just waking up. You thinking that but she ain't never. She said, "I've never played with you like that." She said, "Listen to me. And I heard the fear in her voice. I heard the fear. I heard the desperation.
Africa as well. I think we're starting to see the results of what that means for the planet, when not only the 5% of the American population strives for that, but when increasingly the rest of the world also is bought into that, and you then have to provide
and a voice to get out what she had to say. And she said, "My plane has been hijacked. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going to happen. But, all I know is this, I love you." And she said, "I love you. Tell my boys I love them. I don't know if I'm going to see you guys again." And I'm like, at this point,
the goods and the energy that those goods takes to produce, we're arriving at the kind of exhaustion of the physical planet. The ancient philosopher Confucius, he was asked what he would do if he were ever to rule the state. Someone said, "Okay, you're in charge of the state, what would you do?" He said a very interesting thing. He said he would, quote,
my heart is like beating. I'm like, am I dreaming? Am I sleeping? I didn't know whether I was still dreaming or what. I didn't know whether it was real or what. But I'm listening. So at that point, I stopped. I said, "Okay, well, let's pray." So we prayed, and then she told me that, she said, "Well,
the language." And I think if he was asked that in the modern age, he would say, "Let me control the media." If you can control the stories, you don't need to have soldiers on street corners to control them. You can control people in the road.
Getting ready to go to the cockpit, and I'm trying to figure out what she's saying. I hear people in the background screaming, and I hear some bamming. And she said, "Okay, it's getting ready to happen, it's getting ready to happen." And then we got disconnected. And then that was the last time I spoke to her. Then
own heads and their own imaginations. On the one hand, it's really depressing because it's like, how do you then get out of it? Because there's no way you can have control of media. There's no way you can compete with these stories that are told thousands of times a day through advertising, through programming, through newspapers, through the internet now, through video games, through all kinds of ways. At the same time, the reason I'm hopeful, the reason actually gives me some hope.
Once the phone got disconnected, then I sat up in the bed because I did all this laying down. I sat up in the bed like, it was like I just woke up. I'm like, was that a real call? So I looked at the caller ID and noticed that it was a call and it was from her cell phone. And I'm like, okay,
is that capitalism has to do that. That unless it does that, they know that things will fall apart. So capitalism in that sense is like a house of cards. A house of cards, it has to be constantly held together. We have to be told every single day what this story is. And they have to do it every day because it's unnatural.
Wait a minute. How could she call me from on the plane from a cell phone? Because cell phones don't work on the plane. That's what I'm thinking. It was about like 9:30. I guess that's when the call started. Then I guess I didn't answer the phone until the last time she called, which was, I think it was like 9:51.
If it was natural, they wouldn't have to do it. And if they stop, they know that in fact it would fall apart. That actually is the great hope for me. Is in fact the amount of time they have to spend convincing us about the value of this society is in fact what gives me hope that
and reverse engineer the sensory and neural pathways of the victim's brain and central nervous system. It's brutal, brutal torture. Brutal torture. Unlike anything you can imagine.
Today, no war has been declared, and however fierce the struggle may be, it may never be declared.
But there's an alternative, just below the surface. And that alternative is much more human, much more compassionate, is much more connected to concern for other people, is much more connected to concern for the planet. And that it's being held down by this incredible and relentless propaganda system.
Ed, in the traditional fashion, our way of life is under attack.
The outcome is that they want to connect the human brain to artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence becomes human consciousness.
And it can all be done.
If a decision is made by a centralized authority, it's going to represent the interests of a particular group in power. If power is actually rooted in large parts of the population, if people can actually participate in social planning, then they will presumably
done remotely. It can be done simply by targeting you with the frequency, locking into the resonant frequency of your DNA and your mind, and in that manner completely track and trace and control you 24 hours a day.
This disturbing message is for the several million Americans and for anyone else who cares deeply about the future of their country and the planet Earth.
terms of their own interests. That's why Madison, for example, and Lippmann, and Bernays, and a whole host of others have argued that we cannot permit the population to participate.
The U.S. is in grave danger. Strangely, the peril is not from foreign enemies, but from enemies within. The United States and much of the Western world is ultimately controlled by an unelected, unaccountable cabal.
Because if they do, they will pursue their own interests, not the interests of the wealth of the nation. If you have centralized power, they'll use it for their own interests. You don't have to read that in a complicated textbook. It should be understandable by any 10-year-old child. And not
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Very